You've probably heard that rest is the answer. But what if resting the wrong way is actually keeping you stuck? Part two, Miguel breaks down what sustainable recovery really looks like day to day and how you can start rebuilding trust in your body even after years of setbacks and disappointment. Stay tuned. Welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm Kendra Nielsen, wife, mom, and licensed therapist. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but you're still exhausted and empty? Did you think life, marriage, and parenting would be simpler and more rewarding? Sometimes you just want to crawl back into bed and lose yourself in screen time and chocolate, rather than face that personal or family stress. You are not alone. This podcast helps you break free of the rat race and build a richer, more meaningful life, flourishing incrementally and realistically, improving your mental health and wellness, and living with deeper purpose beyond the mundane, no matter where you are in life's journey.
There are some days I'll work 12 hours. I will push really hard to the point where my team forces me to slow down, put days off in my calendar because I still have those tendencies. But you want to learn to use them to your advantage. It's okay to be a perfectionist sometimes in certain situations. But there's this one client we had, really smart guy. He owned like a space company. Like they work with SpaceX, they use this magnetic propulsion. Anyways, super smart, but he didn't know how to turn it off, which is why he became bedridden for years. He'd be sitting in a chair and be analyzing the chair and saying, why did they build the legs like this? Why did they put it at this angle? It should be like that. Because he's like a physics genius. That's an example where you wouldn't want to use all of these traits you have for every scenario. If you're a financial controller, you don't need to be so detailed and analytical with numbers and these things when you're at the dinner table with your family. You want to learn to turn the dial back. So that's another thing. Your personality is not set in stone. That's the beauty of neuroplasticity. And I think the biggest thing is obviously the ideal scenario is you do see the doctors. Unfortunately, you do have to go through that process of being on the merry-go-round a little bit, just to make sure you leave no stone unturned. And once you've done your due diligence, right? Usually that's where people are like, okay, if the doctors can't help me, I'm going to help myself. And I just need to find something that actually makes sense to me. And if it makes logical sense to people, coupled with a lot of case studies of people in their similar situation, that's when it starts to click and they become open to this because they see themselves in someone like me or the other 60 hours of case studies we have online. That's why we try to do interviews with as many people as we can so they could share their story. Because sometimes if you're a mother who's 46 years old, a mother of three, you're not really going to resonate with me who got this when I was 22. But if you hear somebody else who's maybe 48 and she's got two kids and she's dealing with the exact same things, like the stresses of how will I have enough energy to put into my recovery if I'm making breakfast for the kids, I'm dropping them off at school, if it's so unpredictable with their soccer practices and going to their friends' house, how do you be a good mother or a good wife or a good husband, good father while recovering when your tank is so limited, right? But if they hear somebody else who's been in that situation and what they did, and they're like, oh, I didn't think of it from that angle, then that's when it can really start to click for them. That's why I encourage people, watch as much content as you can of things that are solution focused for recovering, not
Yeah,
the problem focused stuff.
I'm all about solution focused. Absolutely love it. So tell me then with these clients, because I almost hear two parts of it. There's this part, this certain personality style, if you will, that is maybe more of a high achiever, just ignores cues from their body and just like plows through until they like massively crash. So how much of
Mhm.
it is honoring your body versus maybe like pushing it, encouraging it to lean in? doing these things they don't believe that they can do, like making food for their families, getting out of bed. Yeah, can you explain that to me? How to know which one to lean into?
Yeah, this is probably the most commonly asked questions because when your body's flaring up 24/7, how do you know when to put your foot on the gas pedal or when to tap on the brakes? And so this is part of the framework we put together. Number one, it's stabilizing first, right? And what does stabilizing mean in recovery? It means actually understanding what's happening to your body. Because if you don't understand what's happening, every time you feel these physical sensations in your body, on one hand, you feel the physical sensations. If you don't know why your heart's skipping or why your lungs feel like can't get enough oxygen or why you're dizzy, all of those physical sensations is gonna lead to some kind of slight panic, some kind of confusion, fear. And a lot of these emotions, it just reminding your nervous system that it's not safe. And the whole reason the symptoms are there in the first place is to try and slow you down, to reduce the amount of overall stimulus. I think it will actually help describing this analogy. Basically, the reason people feel symptoms is everybody has a certain stress threshold. They have a limit to how much stimulation they can handle. It's different for everybody, right? Now, in life, life happens. There's like relationships, finances, work, personality, maybe you're moving houses, all these things add up. A lot of people like long COVID, it was just a big stressor that they were already burning the candle on both ends. And now they've gone over that threshold. So what that is now your brain is going, okay, we've gone over our limit. We're getting into dangerous territory here. And it starts to try to slow you down. It's like a car putting the engine light on. Okay, hold up. We're going a little too hard here. Problem is for most people with type A personalities, they'll see that check engine light or they'll hear that from their body, feel it. They'll see it as a challenge. So, okay, I got to push harder. I'm not weak. I'm not going to slow down. Like, I need to go harder, which sounds crazy. This is how we think as type A people. We don't want to quit or quote unquote quit. We don't want to slow down. And so they typically try to push through it, which only goes further beyond the stress threshold, and you just get more symptoms. So we all know somebody, maybe we did it before, where the check engine light is on, but you're driving on a highway, you want to get to your friend's house. It's an important dinner. So you're like, nah, I think I could make it. So you keep driving. Now two lights go on, three lights, five lights. Next thing you know, you blow the engine. You could have just slowed down and checked out the engine stuff, put oil in. Now we've blown the engine. And so that's how this happens. And going back to the main point, right? Once you're well beyond your stress threshold, almost anything you do, any kind of stimulus can lead to symptoms because your brain is, this is too overwhelming. Now, even just turning the lights on or a sound, too much for us to process. And all of that, we want to give you symptoms to slow you down. So light could lead to migraines, sound can lead to tinnitus, standing up can lead to shortness of breath. So if you don't understand why those symptoms are happening, you're going to be freaking out. You're going to feel like you're dying. Whereas if you do understand, you'll be like, okay, I stood up. Okay, my heart rate just jumped up 40 beats per minute, but I know why. Okay. Now, to interrupt that cycle of sensations and symptoms equals more sensations, more symptoms, or sorry, more like higher emotions. You can't be super emotional when you're super logical. The brain can only do one thing at a time. So once things make logical sense, that's when you're stable. You stop getting worse. Your body gets out of the cycle, and now we can build from there. And that's the first part is stabilizing, is understanding what's going on. The second part is it's expanding activity, building your threshold. And it's a very duplicatable process. We call them progress cycles. Because what happens is anytime somebody tries to do something, they're going to feel slightly worse after. They'll flare up. They need to dial it back. Very similar to how you would work out and put on muscle. You don't just go for 100 push-ups the first workout. You do like 10, probably go home. 2 days later, you do maybe 12 or 15. Now, what most people do is they'll try to get to 100. They'll try to do or 50, right? In that case, you would get injured. Same thing with the nervous system. you go a little bit too hard too soon, a crash could happen, relapse or something. But it's okay to feel a little bit sore in the gym. With the nervous system, it's okay to feel some symptoms. That's actually how it works. That's how your nervous system gets back to normal. You need to show it that, okay, let's take baby steps in this direction. As we flare up, we're going to dial it back a little bit. But you only do as much as you can handle. And that's what we help people with. We actually look at their symptoms, their activity levels, their history. What are their mental and emotional roadblocks? So we know how much activity to do and also how much to dial it back. You know how much to hit the gas and dial it back, but it's like a cycle. You increase activity, you flare up a little bit, but that's like your progress cycle. And if you dial it back, handle your emotions okay, your body actually unlocks a new level of capacity. And you rinse and repeat. You go through dozens and dozens of that. I must have went through that 300 times, probably more to get to where I'm right now. But sometimes it lasts a day. Sometimes it can last 2 months. In the beginning, it's harder to do this, but it gets easier as you go on.
This reminds me of recently I just did a really big somatic like body work training, and it's amazing how so many of us are not very in tune with our body, myself included. It took a long time to really notice some of those things. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is like really getting intentional and still enough to tune in with your body about its needs instead of just neglecting it so much or pushing it so much. Like that constant gas break, and like reevaluating. Is that right?
You're exactly right. It's learning to read what your body is trying to tell you because most people, they're really good at managing these exhaustions, symptoms, all of that stuff through logistics. Things like sleep, they could measure their food, they could measure tasks they're doing. All of the external stuff, it's pretty easy to track that. Those are
Mhm.
controllable and like tangible. Like you can track your sleep hours and meal plans, but emotions and the sensations in your body, that feels a lot more messy.
Yeah.
It's not so tangible. So most people neglect this part of recovery, but also because they don't know how powerful it is. Quietly, though, when all the physical stuff doesn't work, there's probably part of their brain that knows maybe the emotional stuff, it maybe does matter more than I'm willing to admit, right? They probably tell themselves, I don't have time for that. If I open that box, what kind of rabbit hole am I going to go down there? Or
Right.
I don't want to have trauma. I already dealt with my past. Let me fix this with external things. But what the research shows is emotions are physical. They can lead to very physical things like unprocessed emotions. They create physiological states, right? And they live in your body. So if you don't address that side of things, you can optimize all the practical, measurable things. But if there's unprocessed emotional charge underneath, like a lot of these symptoms, they're not going to lift long term. So that is a huge part of what we do. Is when people ask us what we do, I mean, I could write a whole book on it, which I actually have. But in a nutshell, we call it like neuroplastic recalibration or
Yeah.
neuroplastic therapy. It's a mix between cognitive behavioral therapy stuff, physiotherapy stuff, because that's the physical side of things, but also emotional processing. And if we address all those three and put a plan together, that's where we can maximize the likelihood of recovery and reduce the likelihood of relapsing.
I'm sure that brings a lot of hope to people that just don't feel people understand. Again, going back to my daughter, like from the emotional standpoint of a therapist, like I'm constantly trying to navigate that with her. Okay, how much of this can we navigate with talking through our feelings, doing like the work that we do in sessions versus how much of it that she wants to do as far as that physical space with a doctor, with specialists, with all of that. And it's constantly trying to reevaluate that and allowing her that now that she's an adult, the space to decide for herself how she wants to manage it. But I love that you have found something that really helps for you, for your client. And you mentioned a book. Can you tell me, is that available where people can read that or?
Well, that book is that's about 3 years old. Actually, I need to write a new one. might be slightly outdated, but it's called Thriver, Not Survivor: How to
Okay.
Beat Chronic Fatigue Syndrome. And I've wrote it. It's only about 80 pages long because I tried to make it as readable as possible for people with severe brain fog and migraines and headaches. So it's like double spaced, bigger text so they can read it, but there's also an audio version online. But actually, the videos are probably more helpful than the book because in the last 3 years, probably posted like 1,000 YouTube videos that go way more in depth than the book does.
Then say they want to check out your YouTube videos. Can they find you for that?
Yeah, they could go to just CFS Recovery on YouTube. The first people who come up with that.
Okay. And we'll put all of that in the show notes as well. But yeah, I feel like there's so many things that you talked about today. Just how to honor the body without pushing it too much. Those people that have the nothing works for me mentality, really focusing and learning more of that hypersensitive nervous system, what you can do for that. And if you're in that survival mode, neuroplasticity. I love that you talk about that. I'm so fascinated with neuroplasticity and the things that we can change. Also love the stories about clients that have struggled with this for a long time. You talked about one for 51 years and being able to shift that and suddenly have a new way of living life, like living life more fully. Now, does this mean for your clients that you said in your case, your capacity is better than ever before? Do you see that with a lot of clients, or do they have to change their expectations and definitions about what normal is?
Yeah, it's both because the normal that they once knew is actually not quite normal. It just wasn't sustainable. But the way we break it down to everybody is, look, you have to figure out what that North Star is. We get very clear on that in the beginning. So what kind of life are we working towards after recovery? Not the
Mhm.
old life, because let's be real. If you went back to your old life, if you call that a perfect life, that's what got you here in the first place, right? You're going to be
Yeah.
burning the candle on both ends. History repeats itself. And then they go, oh, you're right. I guess I remember it as being good because it's better than where I'm at right now. But I was really stressed out. I was pushing it every day and I was dealing with a lot of symptoms on the crash down. So, yeah, I want to build a different life. And yeah, we see a lot of clients who do have more capacity than they had before. There's people that were dealing with certain symptoms or food sensitivities for years before they ever got bedridden or had to go off work. And now they could eat those things or they could do things that they haven't been able to do in their previous life. And so I always describe it as you live three lives when you're dealing with CFS, long COVID. First life is your life prior to this stuff, right? You're going about your life. Your second life is when you're in the trenches of this. It's a completely different experience. It's like living in a different dimension because you have to
Mm.
second guess everything you do, isolated from the world. But the cool part is the third life. It's far beyond what people could imagine because a lot of times they write off all of these ideas and hopes and dreams they have because they don't want to get their hopes up and be disappointed. But once they start gaining capacity again, start gaining momentum, they go, wait a minute, maybe that is possible to get there. And so, yeah, there's this whole idea of, is it possible to be quote unquote 100% recovered? And it's interesting. That's the illusion you have at the beginning of recovery. Because as you get better and better, you realize there is no 100%. There is no ceiling. And also, why would you put a ceiling on your potential? So if we were to compare percentages in my life, I'm at maybe 1,000% capacity. And old Miguel was 100% capacity because of all the things I'm able to do and also sustain without getting symptoms. So it was honestly the greatest gift I could have received. And everybody who's recovered says that exact same thing. But that sounds crazy if you're in the trenches right now. I also thought the same thing. On the other side, it unlocks a whole different version of you because the only way out is to level up that version of you physically, mentally, emotionally, like everything.
Right. That's incredible. And I don't even know if you have this statistic at all, but for the people that are just feeling really discouraged, not knowing where to turn, considering maybe coming to you, do you have like a ratio of people that have success?
Yeah. So we have different solutions for people at different levels of how much they can engage with the program, also financially, but our highest level program, Recovery Academy Platinum, there's a 97% satisfaction rate on that. And we've had several hundred people go through that one. Yeah, because there's also a very particular screening process, a nervous system health assessment that we do just to make sure we can actually help somebody. If we're not like 99.9% certain that we can get this thing solved, we won't work with somebody in that program. We'll have them watch it for YouTube videos. But for the
Yeah.
people who do make it through, yeah, it's about a 97% satisfaction rate. People are happy with it. They're getting their lives back. They're recovering.
I'm sure that's going to give a lot of peace of mind for people that want to reach out to you. So, my last couple questions, let me ask them one at a time. The first one is, since my podcast episode is all about fulfillment, maybe it's in this area, maybe it's in something else, but what's something you've done in the last few months that has created more fulfillment in your life?
Definitely in the last 3 weeks, what I've realized for fulfillment is spending time with good friends, spending quality time with people, and starting to realize that it doesn't need to be anything fancy. I've traveled a lot. I've had a lot of cool experiences, been on helicopter rides, boats, blah, blah, blah. But the most fulfilling thing is just having a good dinner with good food, with great laughs, with great people. And I would choose that over anything. It could be in the dinkiest restaurant, it could be in a living room, but you have good people around and you're telling stories and laughing. I don't think anything beats that. So
Wonderful. I love that. And so simple, but true. I love doing that too. What about for those of us that want to know more, we want to find you? You said YouTube is a good resource, but where else can they reach out? Maybe they want to book you individually. I don't know if you do that, or
yeah,
tell us a little bit about that.
yeah, for sure. Kendra, one thing I love about you is you're constantly showing up for your audience. You make massive value. So that kind of inspired me to do the same. I want to give everybody listening to this right now something I don't ever offer. It's something that is usually reserved for our highest level premium clients. They might actually be upset that I'm giving this away, but I wanted to over deliver for your audience. I put together something called the Recovery Roadmap Protocol. It's not for someone who wants a magic pill or a quick fix, an overnight cure. Recovery is a process, it takes work. It's not for somebody who isn't willing to look at things differently. Like if you've already decided that nothing can help you, you tried everything and your situation is somehow different from the thousands and thousands of other people recovering, we can't override that belief. But it is for somebody who is dealing with a lot of these mysterious debilitating symptoms. They feel like they're doing the right stuff. They're following the advice. They tried different protocols, but they're still feeling the symptoms. They're confused and frustrated. This is for those people. And so there's two parts to it. Part one is the recovery stage identifier. It's a short diagnostic, shows you where your nervous system sits on this severity scale. And that's also going to uncover why what you've been doing hasn't, what you should probably be focusing on right now. For most people, that alone is the biggest relief they felt in months because it's no more guesswork, no more random trial and error. Like, it's very clear on where you're at. But part two is what I'm most excited about. That's what I debated if I should include or not, but it's the personalized recovery report. So that's the exact internal tool we use with our premium clients. But it's a detailed, personalized analysis based on your responses, like your symptoms, your history, your roadblocks. Shows you what you need to change, what you probably need to double down on, but more importantly, it's like the exact order that those things need to happen in. So it's like a decision making framework for recovery. And I set up a page specifically for this podcast at
Mhm.
www.cfsrecovery.co/fulfillment. I just please ask that you guys don't share it around. This is only for your audience, specifically for you guys. If you want that recovery stage identifier and the personalized recovery report, just head over to cfsrecovery.co/fulfillment and you'll be able to get immediate access to that.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. And I already have a few people in mind that I want to send them over to that and see what they think. And I'm sure they'll be very excited. So I appreciate you giving us those extra things for our audience that are just looking for answers and want to take that next step in a way that they have felt stuck for a long time. I very much appreciate you coming on the show, Miguel, and also that resource that you're giving us too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one last thing I'd like to leave people with is very simple. Recovery is possible. There's a reason you're still listening to this podcast right now, an hour in. It's because you also believe that recovery is possible and you're looking for answers and you have that hope, that spark inside. And at the end of the day, as long as you have that, I can't see anything that's going to stop you from eventually getting there, regardless of how long it takes. Could happen fast, could take longer, but regardless, at some point in this timeline of life, you're going to be out there back in the world, living your life, smiling, laughing, but just keep on going. Just keep on going. Recovery is possible.
I love that. Thank you. I think we all need that extra belief, motivation when we maybe are not feeling it ourselves. So that's a beautiful place to start. And thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We're so grateful that you followed us into part 2. It tells us that you're serious about healing and fulfillment, and you don't take that lightly. If you've ever dreamed of turning your own story and gifts into something that impacts others, check out Find Your Focus and launch your podcast at fulfillmenttherapy.org. These courses are built for people exactly like you who are ready to lead and build something meaningful online. And please share this episode with a family member or friend who needs to hear it. A quick text or post on social media could be the thing that changes someone's life today. We'll see you back here every Monday with new episodes. Until then. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this episode, a quick 30-second share can help someone else find support and help this podcast grow. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts boosts visibility and keeps the show alive. Your simple acts make a big difference. I'll see you back here each week for more life-changing episodes.